In this video, I'm talking all about long exposure photography, and I'm going to answer the question of what is it, how do you do it, and what results can you achieve from this effect. So let's get right into the video. So first of all, what is long exposure photography? Well, long exposure photography is essentially just an open shutter on your camera, and the results of this is a beautiful blending of all the motion in the shot. So if you have your shutter open on your camera for 30 seconds, it's going to capture 30 seconds of movement and stitch that together into one shot. Now, the most common example of this is traffic lights moving by on a road. When you open your shutter for an extended period of time when taking photos, you're going to see the headlights and the rear light of the car moving throughout the frame to create this beautiful light streak. Of course, though, you don't just have to do long exposure on the traffic or cars moving past your camera. You can do this on anything that moves. So you could do long exposure photography against the sky and see the clouds all blurring together. You could do this on water to kind of smooth out the water. Or you can get creative and do whatever you like with this. But the question is, how do we do long exposure photography? Well, first up, you need to grab a digital SLR camera and you need to be able to adjust all of the settings manually. If you have an automatic camera, then unfortunately you're really going to struggle with this. So try and get a camera that allows you to adjust the manual settings. Now, switch over into manual mode and you're going to pull your shutter all the way down to a smaller number. So the basics of shutter speed is the higher the number, the crispier the movement is going to look, and the lower the shutter speed, the more blurred out the movement is going to look. And we're taking advantage of that lower end of the shutter speed spectrum in order to get our long exposure photos. So we want to leave our shutter open for anywhere between 1 second to 30 seconds. And then of course, opening up your shutter all the way is going to add more light into the sensor. So this means we're going to have to pull the aperture up to correctly expose the image, and we also might have to pull the ISO down to 100. So now that you've adjusted all of the camera settings, you want to mount your camera onto a tripod. It's really important that you put your camera onto a tripod, because if you don't, then the movement of the camera is going to be seen in the final image and it's just going to look like this. And as you'll know, that is not the result we're looking for. So it's super important that your camera is stable for the entire duration of the shot. And talking about stability, it's also really important that we put a 2-second delay on the shutter. So when you take your picture, you want there to be a small delay, because without that delay, if you press the shutter, there might be a small vibration on the camera or on the tripod that will be seen in the image. So add a small timer or a delay onto the camera, which means when you press the shutter button, it's going to wait 2 seconds and then the photo is taken. Now in my example, I'm taking this photo of the city skyline from a window. I can't get the camera outside, so I'm having to shoot inside, which means I'm shooting through a window. And it's really important that when you're shooting long exposure photos through a window, that you eliminate all of the light inside the building. So if I place my camera on a tripod next to the window and I take the photo, if I keep the lights on in the room, you can see them reflecting off the window into the camera sensor. So if I pull all the lights off and push the camera closer to the window, then it's really going to eliminate that reflection on the window and it's going to give us a really clean photo. Now, when you're taking long exposure photos in the evening or a dark environment, all you have to do is just adjust the settings in the camera and you should be correctly exposed. But the problem is, if you want to do a long exposure photo in the daytime, you're going to let too much light into the camera sensor, and regardless of how low you pull your ISO or how high you pull your aperture, you're still going to be overexposed. So this is where you want to go ahead and get yourself an ND filter, a neutral density filter for your camera lens. Now an ND filter is essentially just a pair of sunglasses for your camera lens. It's going to block out some of that light getting into your camera sensor, and that means you can go ahead and shoot long exposure photos in the daytime without worrying about overexposing your image. So essentially you just want to put your camera onto a tripod, pull your shutter speed all the way down, and then you just want to add a start delay to your camera, take the photo, and you're good to go. You've got yourself an amazing long exposure photo. So if you enjoyed watching this video, or if you found this helpful at all, then please do let me know in that comment section below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. And if you are subscribed already, then I will see you on the next video. See you there.